Fire prevention and control. Learning outcomes. On completion of this course, you should be able to identify appropriate fire safety legislation and the requirements that need to be met, describe the principles of combustion, describe the actions to be undertaken when a fire occurs, describe the role of the fire warden, list different fire extinguishers and their use, identify appropriate actions to be undertaken to reduce the risks in the event of fire. Fire strategy. Fires in the workplace can have a huge effect on the business and the individuals. Cost to business, approximately 167,000 fires a year, with an average cost of £100,000 per fire. But the real cost to the individual, 21 workplace fire deaths and over 1,200 injuries. Causes of fire: arson, smoking, electrical equipment and wiring, cooking, poor housekeeping, and hot work. Fire and the law. Fire Safety Order 2006 NI and the Fire Regulations 2010. Part 3 of the Fire and Rescue Services Northern Ireland Order 2006 and the amended Fire Safety Regulations Northern Ireland 2010 came into effect on the 15th of November 2010. This simplified existing fire safety legislation in non-domestic premises and reinforced the modern risk-based approach to fire prevention. Premises which are affected by the legislation. The law applies to almost all premises which are not private dwellings. Examples include, and as you can see, we have quite an extensive list affected by the legislation. It does not apply to people's private homes, including individual flats in a block or house. Fire safety. The legislation has significantly changed the way in which employers and people in control of premises are required to manage fire safety. Responsibility for fire safety in the workplace now clearly rests with the employer and those with any degree of control of premises who are deemed the appropriate person. They must take reasonable steps to reduce the risk from fire and ensure people are able to escape safely if there is a fire. The Northern Ireland Fire and Rescue Service is the enforcing authority in respect of premises and will visit to ensure compliance with fire safety legislation. If you have not had a visit yet, over the next year you will receive a call when the fire safety team will visit your site. Legal responsibilities. Employees have an obligation under health and fire safety legislation to take reasonable care for the health and safety of themselves and others affected by their acts or omissions. Cooperate with the employer and others to enable them to fulfil their legal obligations. Inform their employer of dangerous situations or shortcomings in health and fire safety, and to abide by all fire safety procedures. Remember, in a fire situation, no one expects you to do anything which would put you at risk. Your priority is always to get out of the building safely, and once safely out of the building, encourage people to the assembly point. The principles of combustion. So what is fire? Fire is a chemical reaction requiring the combination of three factors to be present. We need to have heat, we need to have oxygen, and we need to have fuel. Remove any one of these factors and the fire will go out. Typical sources of ignition in the workplace: smoking, electrical equipment, heaters, contractors' tools and equipment, cooking equipment, bad housekeeping, incorrect storage and handling of flammable substances, an accumulation of rubbish and combustible materials, flammable material left close to sources of heat, and one we don't have much control over: arson. Fuels in the workplace: wood, paper and boxes, plastics or foam, solvents, paint or adhesives, carpets or furnishings, waste material, textiles, flammable liquids or gases. These are just a few examples of fuels in the workplace. If we are lucky enough to have a fire, fire spreads four different ways. We have our radiant heat, where as the fire grows, the heat from the fire actually sets fire to other things nearby. And we have convection, where we have a nice supply of cool air, which is feeding the fire with more oxygen, thus a hotter fire, more smoke. We have conduction, where the fire has started on one side of a building and it is transmitted through a metal shutter or housing to a different section. And we have our direct burn fire, where we have the fire involved with the material itself. Convection clearly is the worst type because the supply of oxygen feeding the fire makes it so much hotter and so much smokier. It's important that whether we are on a building site or whether we are in a building itself, that we have fire wardens to manage fire situations if fire starts. Ideally, there should be sufficient fire wardens to cover all areas of a building. However, this is complicated by the size of a building and the complexity of its layout, plus the nature of people's work, as it often takes them out of their own building. Add this to scheduled holidays and other absences, and it becomes apparent quite a few fire wardens could be needed. The principal role of a fire warden is to get people out of the building safely. Only staff with adequate training in fire warden duties can be used. This is done by checking a designated area in a methodical manner, normally the section of the building you work in, as it's the section you know best. A fire warden may also be asked to help the responsible person with implementing the fire safety procedures. A fire coordinator controls fire wardens in the event of a fire and in normal working hours to prevent fires from happening. This is normally one of the management team. They meet the fire and rescue where relevant information is exchanged with the commander. The fire warden system is based on splitting buildings into small manageable areas for quick evacuation. In the event of fire, fire wardens will sweep their areas to ensure that staff, visitors and mobility impaired staff with their assistant have evacuated the building quickly and safely. Fire wardens must have a good planned sweep that will work them to a safe evacuation, closing doors and windows, as this will reduce the speed of the fire along the planned escape route and almost to the assembly point. Fire wardens should only be seconds behind the evacuating staff. Important things to remember. Before an emergency evacuation, work out the area for which you will be responsible for. Get to know your area, your fire exits and your evacuation routes. Discuss with other colleagues exactly where you will cover between you. Know the area you will sweep during the evacuation, and be vigilant at all times, even when there's no fire. Look out for fire-related risks, for example, blocked fire exits, a build-up of combustibles, paper and boxes, in evacuation routes, or fire doors not shutting properly during an evacuation. It's also important that we know company fire procedures. How do you raise the fire alarm? How to call the emergency services? How do you evacuate people to safety? Where all the escape routes are? The location of the nearest fire exit and an alternative? The location of the fire assembly points, and the location of any firefighting equipment. The law states that fire drills should be carried out twice a year, recorded in the fire logbook, and any issues discovered during the fire drill to be rectified. Without doing fire drills, an individual in a fire situation will underestimate the spread of fire and smoke, underestimate how long it takes to get out of a building, look to others to lead or react, react slowly, or use the same door they come in, day out. Fire wardens control that behaviour. Most buildings now have automatic fire detection, but if you discover a fire and the fire alarm has not activated, operate the nearest call point. Raise the alarm, shout to warn others, call the fire service either on 999, 112 or 911. Evacuate your designated area and attempt to fight the fire only if you need to do so. For example, to escape because the fire is between you and the exit. Why should we never use lifts in a fire situation? Well, the lift may open onto the fire. The lift could stop and you could be stuck there. Smoke and fumes could enter the lift and the lift may be grounded. So what action do you take in the event of a fire? Evacuate the building immediately. Only attempt fighting the fire if it is between you and your exit. Report to the fire assembly point. Report any persons not accounted for to your senior fire warden. Pass on any relevant information to the fire and rescue service, and only return to the building after the fire service have given the all clear. It's important during evacuation to go to the assembly point as quickly as you can. On arrival, all staff and visitors must be accounted for. Signing in records and visitors' books must be taken to the fire assembly point for this use, and gather the information to be reported to the fire service when they arrive. This information will be given by the fire wardens when they exit the building. Fire safety signs fall under the Health and Safety Signs and Signals Regulations 1996, which says signs must be clear and legible and should be used to identify actions that are prohibited, for example, no access. Safeguards that must be followed, for example, ear protection must be worn, warning of a hazard, for example, corrosive material, and to direct towards fire exits, equipment, or first aid equipment. Here we have some examples of fire signs and symbols. The blue fire exit keep clear sign should be on the exterior of all fire exit doors. We have our push bar to open and our fire exit signs with the running man and a directional sign. And we have our fire assembly point. Any fire exit signs must have the pictogram with the running man. This section is on fire extinguishers and their uses. There are 5 types of fire extinguishers available. We have water, foam, dry powder, wet chemical, and CO2. Also, most kitchens have a fire blanket. So what information is on fire extinguishers? Firstly, there is a plastic seal which is over the pin. This shows that the extinguisher hasn't been used since it was last serviced. There is a contents gauge, 2 red sections and a green section, of which the arrow must be in the green section. The type of extinguisher, the method of operation, the class of fire suitable for use, signified by a pictogram or a series of pictograms, and the service maintenance date. So the acronym PASS is used when we are going to actually use a fire extinguisher. So the first P is pull the pin out. The A stands for aim at the base of the fire. S stands for squeeze the handle, and the other S is sweep in a figure of 8. Fire classification, symbols on fire extinguishers. The pictogram B is flammable liquids, petrol, mess, solvents, etc. Pictogram F, cooking fats. Pictogram C, flammable gases, methane, hydrogen, etc. Pictogram A, free burning materials, paper, wood, plastics. Pictogram D, metals, potassium, sodium, magnesium, etc. And the pictogram with no letter, which is the sign for electricity, so covers fires involving electricity. On fire extinguishers, you can have a series of pictograms or just one pictogram. So we're now going to cover fire extinguishers in more detail. All fire extinguishers have a red body. This one is water, suitable for use on Class A fires, as you can see by the pictogram. Not suitable for combustible liquids or cooking fats. We should never use water on any type of oil. Not safe to use in fires involving electricity, as it conducts electricity and extinguishes by cooling. We're now going to look at foam. Red body with a cream label, suitable for Class A and B fires. Not suitable for use on fires involving electricity. Extinguishes by cooling and sealing the surface of a burning liquid. Dry powder. Red body with a blue label. Best on Class B fires, but safe to use on any type of fire. Extinguishes by chemically interfering with the combustion. Do not use in a confined area due to inhalation and may cause serious damage to sensitive electrical equipment. Carbon dioxide. Red body with a black label. Best on Class B fires. Safe to use on fires involving electricity, as this does not conduct electricity. Extinguishes by reducing oxygen levels and cooling. Not to be used in confined areas, as this can cause asphyxiation. Oxygen is expelled and the space is filled with CO2 gas. Do not hold the plastic horn or tube when discharging, as this discharges at a very low temperature, so you can get a burn. Wet chemical, red body with a yellow label. This extinguisher is specifically designed for use on cooking oil or fat fires. Can also be used on Class A fires. Extinguishes by smothering and cooling. A fine nozzle creates a mist or spray which reacts with the oil or fat. It comes out as a liquid and it hardens into a crust, taking away the oxygen. Do not use on electrical fires, as this conducts electricity. Fire blanket. Label is usually red or white. For use on any type of fire, but best on small contained Class B fires. Extinguishes by smothering. Normally used in kitchens and one use only. Only attempt to fight the fire if the fire is between you and your way out. Other actions to carry out. Raise the alarm immediately, call the emergency services, select the correct extinguisher, and only if you have ever received practical training should you attempt to fight fire. Leave the building quickly and safely and go to the assembly point. Reducing the risk. Fire prevention. The aims of fire prevention: to protect people and property from harm through fire, to eliminate or minimize the outbreak of fire, to carry out and act on a fire risk assessment. Fire risk assessments carried out by a competent person and reviewed every 12 months and where necessary. Contractors on site or in buildings. Any contractors working on the premises must have hot work permits with electrical equipment PAT tested and up to date. Contractors must also be made aware of company fire procedures before work commences, including how to raise the alarm. Be mindful of fire safety. Don't obstruct fire exits, call points, or fire extinguishers. Smoking is not permitted in the workplace. Observe good security. Don't wedge fire doors open, as they can only help to stop the spread of smoke and flames if they're closed. Fire doors with 30mm protection are fitted with a self-closing device. No door wedges to be used. Emergency exits should be free of obstruction, suitably signed, suitably lit, and not clogged. Fire escape signs are always green and white with the running man. Electrical safety. Ensure that electrical wiring, plugs and sockets are sound, correctly fused, and there is no overloading. Do not run cables under carpets or where they can be trapped under furniture. Portable appliance testing is carried out by a competent person and recorded, and a fixed wiring test to be carried out by a competent person every 5 years. Ensure faulty electrical equipment is reported and taken out of use. Unused equipment is turned off, and an end of day shift check is carried out. Good housekeeping. Remove waste regularly. Keep dust and lint from accumulating if required. Keep electrical cables tidy and uncoiled. Keep combustible storage to a minimum. Store combustible products away from ignition sources, and keep extinguishers, break glass call points, signage clear at all times and easily accessible. It's important that rubbish or stored items should not be allowed to accumulate in hidden areas. Outside bin storage to be sited away from the building in a safe area. So to summarise, be fire safety conscious at all times. Report any fire hazards, know your fire emergency procedures, don't use water or foam on electrical fires, don't use lifts, use stairs to evacuate, know your fire assembly point, the various escape routes, and the locations of fire equipment and how to use them. You should now be able to identify appropriate fire safety legislation and the requirements that need to be met, describe the principles of combustion, describe the actions to be undertaken when a fire occurs, describe the role of the fire warden, list different fire extinguishers and their use, and identify appropriate actions to be undertaken to reduce the risks in the event of fire. Thank you for your time and attention from the team at the CITB. A more comprehensive course on fire prevention and control is available for training on site or on the mobile training unit. Please contact the CITB office to arrange this.